Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty snap an 8-day losing streak after a dramatic reversal in the last hour. The Sensex reclaimed 76,000, but the gains are limited. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman attributes the recent FII selling to profit bookings as investments are yielding good returns in India. Foreign institutional investors net sold equities worth nearly 1 lakh crore rupees since the start of 2025.
We have utilized this embargo period not only to make basic fixes in terms of resilience, in terms of security, in terms of capacity, but also to position the bank for the future.
Kotak Mahindra Bank CEO Ashok Vaswani tells CNBC-TV18 they're set to launch a new version of 811, their digital service platform, also confident of reclaiming the credit card market share they lost due to the 10-month ban by the RBI. Adds the bank will launch the One Kotak campaign, which is aimed at unlocking group synergies later this month. That's an exclusive. India's trade deficit widens to $23 billion in January as exports decline and imports rise. The deficit is near $88 billion in the first 10 months of this financial year. That's a 25% jump compared to the last fiscal. It's a matter of life and death, says Volkswagen to the Bombay High Court as it challenges a tax demand of nearly $3 billion, claims it's compliant with import regulations and follows the same practice in Mexico, Thailand and Malaysia, questions the ease of doing business and warns India will become a laughing stock. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrives in Saudi Arabia ahead of expected negotiations with Russian officials to end the war in Ukraine. French President Macron holds an emergency summit in Paris to discuss a response to the Trump administration's decision to sideline Europe and Ukraine from the talks. Israeli officials head to Cairo to discuss a reconstruction plan for Gaza that excludes Hamas. Qatar, UAE and other Arab states are likely to fund the rebuilding effort by setting up a committee of technocrats, but the future of Hamas and its military status remain unresolved. China's President Xi Jinping meets top business leaders, including tech executives, signaling support to bolster private sector growth. Alibaba's Jack Ma, who was sidelined 4 years ago, was also spotted at the meeting. Indian Railways launches a high-level probe into the stampede at the New Delhi station on Saturday that left 18 people dead and several injured. Reports suggest the committee is looking into all possible reasons, including crowd management failure, that could have led to the tragedy. Station authorities have halted the sale of platform tickets from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. for a week. North India wakes up to strong tremors. Earthquake jolts Delhi, NCR, Bihar and adjoining areas. No casualties or damage to properties reported so far. Well, let's start with the market action. We saw a dramatic late rally on Dalal Street, wiped out the losses, helping the Sensex and the Nifty finally close in the green after 8 sessions. The Sensex moving back above the 76,000 mark, but closing just shy of that. But in the green, the Nifty also closing about 30 points higher. Mid-cap seeing some respite as well. Almost a 200-point gain there. And similar story for the Nifty Bank. And that's what drove the recovery that we saw on Dalal Street this afternoon. Staying with the market, Sanjeev Prasad of Kotak Institutional Equities has warned about froth in mid-caps and small caps. Victor Schwetz of Macquarie Capital says India's earnings per share must grow at least 10% to justify the high valuations. Take a look.
If you look at the valuation of the large cap index, let's say the Nifty 50 index, it's not too bad, roughly about 20 times 1 year forward, about 7.5 on a March 27 basis. There will be earning downgrades, I'm sure, in some of the sectors. But broadly speaking, I don't see too much downside, as far as the large caps or some of the large caps are concerned, namely the financial names, IT, pharma, etc. Yeah, there are still pockets of overvaluation even in the large caps, but I can live with that. The problem still remains in the mid cap and small cap, areas. That is sector dominated by mid-cap, small caps, or the mid-cap, small-cap stocks. Still a lot of froth over there, and I think you would see a lot more correction over there.
Earnings per share in India probably need to be in low double digits. You probably should be looking at 11, 12, 13. The problem is expectations are much higher than that. You're really looking at expectations of 16, 18%. So the way I look at India is a case of growing into growth. which is in essence a much better problem than trying to extricate yourself from the liquidity trap that, for example, China have found itself in. So China, to me, is a safe harbor during a storm, but otherwise it has a very intractable problem.
Well, that's the outlook as far as the Indian market is concerned. Now, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman attributed the recent FII selling to profit booking. Replying to a question by CNBC-TV18 at an event in Mumbai, she suggested that investments are yielding good returns in India, adding that several steps have been taken in the budget to fire up India's economic engine. Foreign institutional investors have net sold equities to the tune of nearly 1 lakh crore rupees since the start of 2025.
FIIs also go out when they're able to, or in a position to book for profits. Indian market today, Indian economy today, has an environment in which investments are also yielding good returns and profit booking is also happening. And I'm sure you would have seized that fact also.
FIIs keep moving up and down depending upon where they want to really park themselves. And it is not true that the FPIs are really moving from one emerging market to another. I think the general thing is that there is a little bit of, whenever there is a global uncertainty, they would really go back where they actually come from.
And speaking at the same event, M. Nagaraju, the Secretary of the Department of Financial Services, revealed that the government has asked all insurers to extend the free look period from the current 1 month to 1 year. This means that people can cancel their policy within 1 year and get a full refund of their premium if they think that they have been missold a policy. Take a look.
Now we have introduced a policy, a 1 year lookout policy. In fact, we encourage our insurance companies to extend this lookout policy to 1 year, 1 month to 1 year. Now, most, including private sector, they are now doing that. If somebody wants to surrender the policy, please surrender. You get a full amount. There is no questions asked. That we have done.
Well, significant implications there for the insurance sector, but it is the government nudging, or in the words of the DFS Secretary, encouraging insurers to extend the look-in period for a year. Gold prices continued the bull run today as the US dollar weakened. The dollar index is currently close to a 2-month low as traders assessed an unexpected fall in retail sales in the US. Uncertainty over US trade tariffs and interest rates have also supported prices. Meanwhile, crude oil prices fell for the 4th day on expectations that a Russia-Ukraine peace deal could ease sanctions that have disrupted supply flows from Russia. Concerns that global tariff wars could slow economic growth and weaken energy demand also weighing on crude prices. India's trade deficit has widened to $23 billion in January as exports declined and imports rose. The deficit is near $88 billion in the first 10 months of this financial year. This is a 25% jump compared to the last fiscal. According to the Commerce Ministry's data, merchandise exports fell 2.4%, while goods imported rose 10.3%. That's year on year. The big newsmaker this evening, Kotak Mahindra Bank CEO Ashok Vaswani says the bank is ready to launch a new version of its digital service 811. Speaking to CNBC-TV18, Vaswani also expressed confidence in regaining market share in the credit card business that the bank lost on account of the 10-month ban by the Reserve Bank, adding that the bank will launch a One Kotak campaign this month that will be aimed at unlocking group synergies. This is his first interview since the RBI removed the supervisory restrictions that were imposed on Kotak Mahindra Bank, which prevented them from onboarding customers or issuing fresh credit cards. Take a look.
We are also going to relaunch our entire 811 proposition. The 811 proposition has been completely reworked. Earlier on, it was really about just getting customers with a payment kind of account. But now, during the embargo, the team has worked to make it a complete set of products and services for the core Indian customer. The new 811 app is looking fantastic, and the kind of customer engagement we're getting on the 811 app is a multiple of what we were getting on our old app. I think we've lost about 40 or 50 basis points of spend share, but I think we can get that back. I think the team has done a remarkable job of increasing the value on our existing cards so that customers still found a lot of value, and our existing customers helped us through the embargo. Now, as we go out, and acquire new customers, I'm hoping our market share improves, and at the very least, we claw back our market share. we're going to launch a complete brand repositioning campaign, which I'm really, really excited about. That should hopefully happen before month end, where we start presenting Kotak as the go-to financial services organization for the aspirational Indian, right? And that's what we stand for. And for the first time, we're going to bring all the group companies and everything under one kind of Kotak brand.
And you can watch that entire conversation with Kotak Mahindra Bank CEO at these times on CNBC-TV18. Standard Chartered has appointed PD Singh to head its India business effective from the 1st of April. He will succeed Zareen Daruwala, who's set to retire on the 31st of March. PD Singh earlier served as the CEO of JP Morgan Chase Bank in India. Before that, he worked at HSBC for over a decade. CNBC-TV18 was the first to report on his potential appointment in December last year. The Bombay High Court is hearing Volkswagen India's plea challenging a $1.4 billion tax demand by the customs authorities. The auto giant has said that the total bill, including the penalty, could amount to nearly $3 billion and, in its words, is a matter of life or death. The company has also said the tax department's move could set a dangerous precedent for other auto companies as well. Ashma joins us now with the details. Ashma, take us through what transpired in court today.
Well, Volkswagen clearly worried at this stage, arguing before the Bombay High Court that they're not satisfied that this will only be a 1.4 billion tax bill. Even while they're disputing the tax bill, they're arguing that with a penalty component, which is 100% under the Customs Act, this could go up to as high as $2.8 billion. That's one. The second key argument that Volkswagen has made is that this practice of importing parts from across the world is a practice that is not singular to Volkswagen. It's followed by multiple auto players, and that this tax bill being imposed on Volkswagen will set a dangerous precedent, will impact almost the entire auto space, that this is a new regime that the entire auto space will have to then make peace with. Also, third, Volkswagen argued that this practice is not uncommon across various geographies where Volkswagen does manufacture. So whether that's Thailand, Mexico, Malaysia, Volkswagen argued that this is a standard practice of importing in parts and then subsequently assembling it here, and that this regime of imposing a higher rate, which is 30 to 35%, will in fact be something that will raise questions about the ease of doing business here in India, will raise questions about foreign investments, and quote-unquote what the lawyer said is that this will turn India into a laughing stock. The reason for that, Volkswagen argued, is that since 2011 they've been following this practice. They've brought in as many as 30,000 shipments. Never before has there been any concern raised, and it's only now in 2025 that we have a fresh show cause notice being issued. So on that ground, they've essentially sought for a quashing of these proceedings, quashing of this show cause notice. We're of course yet to hear from the tax department that will seek to defend its show cause notice against Volkswagen.
All right, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us. Now, the Indian alcoholic beverage industry has called for the withdrawal of all state-level excise concessions on imported liquor. This after the government cut the import duty on American-made bourbon whiskey from 150% to 100%. Industry has argued that the customs duty cuts will harm Indian products in both the spirits and wines categories. The US has welcomed the initial set of tariff cuts. UAE-based Fly-the-By is exploring the possibility of starting a new domestic airline in India with Busy Bee Airways. According to a money control report, Busy Bee has approached Go First Committee of Creditors to acquire its trademarks, flying license and airport slots. Busy Bee has proposed a 1,000 crore rupee deal to purchase Go First's operational rights. Private telecom operators have opposed the latest spam control regulations issued by the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Telco said the regulation scope failed to include OTT communication service providers like WhatsApp. Concerns have also been over the significant increase in penalties for non-compliance. The firms maintain that these penalties should be imposed on actual originators of such calls like telemarketers. Israeli officials are heading to Cairo to discuss a reconstruction plan for Gaza that excludes Hamas. Qatar, UAE and other Arab states are likely to fund the rebuilding effort by setting up a committee of technocrats. However, the future of Hamas and its military status remains unresolved. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio was in Jerusalem over the weekend and held talks with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and other officials. Marco Rubio's next stop is Saudi Arabia. He arrived in the country ahead of expected negotiations with Russian officials to end the war in Ukraine. French President Macron has held an emergency summit in Paris to discuss a response to the Trump administration's decision to sideline Europe and Ukraine from the talks. Ukrainian President Zelensky says they will never accept decisions made by the US and Russia.
I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine. never. And our people, never. And our adults and children and everybody. It can't be so. This is the war in Ukraine against us, and it's our human losses. And we are thankful for all the support, unity between USA, in USA, around Ukraine, support, bipartisan unity, bipartisan support. We're thankful for all of this, but there is no any leader in the world who can really make a deal with Putin without us, about us.
China's President Xi Jinping meets top business leaders, including tech executives, signaling their support to bolster private sector growth. Alibaba's Jack Ma, who was sidelined 4 years ago, was also spotted at that meeting. Ever since DeepSeek shook Silicon Valley and American AI companies, Chinese tech stocks have seen a lot of inflows. Prashant is standing by with more on the significant developments in the Chinese tech space. Prashant.
It has been nearly a month since the release of DeepSeek R1 last month on the 20th of January. Now, the effects of its release are still being discussed. It already has turned out to be a significant event for Chinese markets, especially Chinese tech and AI stocks. Actually, the emergence of Chinese tech and the resurgence of Chinese tech post-DeepSeek has clearly been the big talking point across Asia and actually even in the US as well. Let's actually just take a look at returns, right, which reinforces that point that people are taking what's happening quite seriously. Chinese tech names on a year-to-date basis. Hang Seng Tech Index, for example, is now up 24%. This comprises of many of the top Chinese AI tech names. The US-traded ETF, which comprises of Chinese tech names, is up 22%. That's KWEB. And one of the largest, most well-known, visible Chinese tech stocks, Alibaba, perhaps second only to Tencent, is up 50% since the start of the year, actually some 52% by last count. What DeepSeek R1 seems to have done is shine the spotlight on how innovative tech-wise China really is and, of course, has become over the years. So I thought while only one China tech story, that is DeepSeek, has garnered much mainstream airtime, why not look at some of the other China-related innovation headlines in just the last 30 days? And actually, there was no dearth of these headlines. And I'll just quickly run you through some of these. You may have read these as well in newspaper articles and on websites, etc. But just a quick run through, right? There was this headline about Chinese satellites beating Musk's Starlink, TikTok parent ByteDance launching Omni-Human that makes photos talk and sing. There was, there was a headline of the world's fastest high-speed train, 450 kilometers an hour, 6th generation fighter jets, world's largest dam costing about $137 billion, air-to-air hypersonic missiles with 620-mile range. I mean, the Chinese fusion reactor, the artificial sun, as it was dubbed by the press, that was a big one. They're building the world's biggest nuclear fusion research facility, 50% larger than what exists in the US. And of course, I mean, China is now the second largest lithium reserve holder, and it is overtaken Australia. So there is a lot there. As I said, there's no dearth. I had to limit myself to 10 of these headlines. Now, even if you're not a big believer in China's innovation capacity, you just can't ignore the valuations, right? The numbers talk for themselves. Here's a simple comparison between top US AI companies, their 2025 P multiples, and contrast that against the top Chinese tech AI companies. And as I said, the numbers do the talking. Look at this, all 30 plus, except, of course, Alphabet, which is about 21 times. And look at the Chinese companies, Tencent, Alibaba, China Mobile, PDD Group, Meituan. I mean, 17, 13, 11, 10, and of course, 18 odd. So some around 10 levels, and of course, all of them under 20. The emergence of DeepSeek R1 is being seen across the world as a reiteration that China is globally competitive and cost-effective, not just in hard goods. It's not just the factory of the world, but it's also leading in cutting-edge soft technology as well. It has altered the narrative of China technology and has sparked a rally in Chinese tech names. Now, I mean, just for context, ChatGPT was launched in November of 2022, and US equities added $13 trillion after that point, after the release of ChatGPT in market capitalization. Most of this addition came from the so-called Magnificent Seven companies, all on this big AI wave. The question is, can DeepSeek do the same for China? Back to you.
Well, we'll just have to see. Plenty of excitement, at least for now. Prashant, many thanks for joining us. We'll take a break, but up next, the government is training its guns on Indians who own undeclared assets abroad. That and more when we return. An American military aircraft carrying 112 illegal Indian immigrants from the US landed at Amritsar airport last night. Reports suggest that 44 of the deportees were from Haryana, 33 from Gujarat and 31 from Punjab. This is the third such arrival in 10 days as part of the new year's administration's crackdown on illegal immigrants. The second batch of 116 deportees had arrived on Saturday night. Indian Railways has launched a high-level probe into the stampede at the New Delhi station on Saturday evening that left at least 18 people dead. The probe committee, comprising 2 senior railway officials, has ordered the securing of all CCTV visuals. Reports suggest the committee is looking into all possible reasons, including crowd management failure, that led to the tragedy. The government announced an ex gratia of 10 lakh rupees to the kin of the deceased. Station authorities have halted the sale of platform tickets from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. for a week. North India woke up to strong tremors today. An earthquake with a magnitude of 4 jolted Delhi NCR and Bihar and adjoining areas. No casualties or damage reported to properties so far. The suspense over the next Delhi Chief Minister continues nearly 10 days after the BJP clinched a victory in the Assembly elections. Reports suggest the newly elected BJP MLAs are set to meet on the 19th of February to pick the new CM. The swearing-in ceremony is likely to be held on the 20th of February. 48 out of the 70 seats in Delhi go to the BJP, ending its 27-year drought in the national capital. Indians who own assets abroad are under the scanner of the Enforcement Directorate and the Income Tax Department. Sources say the focus will be on undeclared property held in Europe through offshore companies and tax havens. Timsy is here with more details. Timsy, what exactly are the ED and the Income Tax Department looking into?
Well, what sources are indicating that both the agencies are holding their inquiries separately, independently, ED on one side and the Income Tax Department on the other side, and both have put Indians holding assets abroad under the scanner. IT Department and Enforcement Directorate currently are conducting independent inquiries into HNIs with assets in European countries. ED's probe is under FEMA, focusing on undeclared property held abroad via offshore companies in tax havens, including British Virgin Islands, Dubai. And ED's probe is looking into whether HNIs created offshore companies solely to acquire or hold these properties abroad. Meanwhile, Income Tax Department's probe is under the Black Money Act, focusing again on HNIs with undeclared bank accounts, cash value insurance contracts abroad, etc. IT Department's probe is also looking into HNIs holding undeclared immovable property, capital assets abroad, and this all is under the issue, or to be precise, the window that they had opened. Remember, between November 17 till 31st December, they had asked the people to come on their own to declare, and after looking into the mismatch between the declarations and what data that Income Tax Department has of these HNIs through ITR declarations, that is through which the Income Tax Department is now conducting these inquiries, depending upon their internal data. So let's see what happens finally after this, whether IT Department and ED is able to actually sustain some of these claims and get some of these undeclared assets declared in the country.
All right, Timsy, appreciate you joining us. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here. Stay tuned. We're back in a moment.